All right, welcome everyone to the Texas Association for College Admissions Counseling virtual college fair. This is the Paying for College panel presentation. Before I pass it over to our presenters, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, this is webinar style format. So while the panelists, you can see and hear the panelists, unfortunately, they cannot see or hear you. So any questions you have throughout the presentation, feel free to submit those in the Q&A box, and they will do their best to address those throughout the presentation. And we will have more sessions available for you to sign up for to connect with more colleges and universities to learn more about the college search process at stridescan.com/Texas. And we are recording all of these sessions, and they will be posted on the website in about a week or so for your viewing in an on-demand setting. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Erin to kick us off. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TACAC College Virtual Fair. We are going to be the next about 30 to 35 minutes. We'll go over some notes on the Fafsa, how to apply for different types of Fafsa-based financial aid, and then also how to apply for outside scholarships. So I'm going to start things off, but I wanted to first introduce Dr. Byron Kerr with Texas State University. He is he's a well-oiled machine in the way of scholarship research, so he's going to go into that. But I'm going to start us off, and I hope you don't mind. I'm taking myself off video because otherwise I'll stare at myself talking, and I can't have that. So I'm going to take my video off, and then go into some notes about the Fafsa. So the Fafsa is the fundamental piece that you guys will all want to do to make sure that you're applying for different types of financial aid. Whenever you hear people say, oh, I got financial aid for college, or I got this, such and that, how they got that, if it wasn't a scholarship from some specific organization, it was from the Fafsa. So starting off, the Fafsa is an acronym. It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And the free indicates that you should not pay anyone to help you fill it out. You can get assistance. Your high school probably hosts FAFSA events in the fall. In Austin, it's the Austin Chamber of Commerce that helps organize those all over Central Texas. So your high school counselor can help you find those events. You can call a local college or university or community college and answer questions about it, but it's designed so that you and your family can fill it out on your own. But a lot of people do really like to have some additional help in filling that out. Second, what the FAFSA asks you to provide is information about the income and the household in which you live, because the purpose of that is to say, here's the family's financial situation. We being the FAFSA, Congress, Department of Education, the tippy top of the hierarchy there, are determining what they feel your family can afford to pay for school. Each university is going to compare how much the FAFSA says you can pay with how much it costs to go to their school. From that, we'll give you a financial aid award. So that's a very good overview. So how does the FAFSA work to determine how much your family can afford to pay? Primarily, they're going to look at income, your parents' wages, or the wages of parent, step parent, whoever's the adults in the household. They're going to look at how many people live in that household. Mom, dad, 2 kids, dad, 3 kids, whatever, grandma, and all, who are dependent on that income. They're also going to wonder, of those household members, not including the parents, who's going to college next year? Are you the first in your family? Are you the third in your family? That matters when determining how much your parents can pay for each person in college. And then finally, they're going to look at assets of the family. Other than wages, does your family own any property, stock, other types of investments? It's not looking at your parents' home or their retirement, but just kind of things that they could use to pay for school. So again, FAFSA uses this to say, how much could the family afford to pay towards the cost of college? The cost of college being tuition, books, housing, whether you're in a resident hall or off-campus apartment, and meals, and some of your day-to-day expenses. So every college is going to have, a budget of how much you're going to need. They're going to compare that to what the FAFSA says your family can afford to pay. And again, that determines how much financial aid you're eligible for. So how you complete the FAFSA is that you're going to go online, fafsa.gov, If you search it, just make sure it ends with a .gov on the website and you'll know you're in the right spot. It opens every year. You're going to fill it out every year, starting your senior year of high school all the way through your senior year of college. The Fafsa application opens October 1st. And if you're going to a Texas institution, you know, 4-year college, 2-year community college, whatever it's going to be, in Texas has a priority deadline to submit it by January 15th. So essentially you've got October, November, December, and the first part of January to get it submitted. Depending on a lot of different factors, some colleges are very firm on that January 15th deadline. And sometimes you might have a little bit more leeway, but the long and short it is try to get it in by January 15th. The student and one parent must sign the FAFSA. And when it's asking you about family income, it's asking you about 2 years prior. So what that means, for example, for our students who are applying for financial aid in this upcoming academic year, the fall of 21 through the spring of 22, they're using tax year 2019. For you guys, I understand a lot of you guys attending today are currently in your junior year of high school, which means you're going to be a senior starting in the fall of 21, and you're going to graduate in the spring of 22. So you will be a college freshman starting in the fall of 2022. And that means your tax year on the FAFSA will be 2020. So it's a little confusing, but read the FAFSA, ask if you have questions, but just think it's looking at 2-year-old income data. Also on the FAFSA, after all of the income and household, it's going to ask you what schools you want to list. So the purpose in listing these schools is that the FAFSA knows that this is very confidential and personal information. So it's not just open to anybody that wants to go in and look at it. You have to list the schools that you give permission for them to go in and get your FAFSA information. You can list up to 10 schools, 10 universities or colleges every time you submit it. But essentially your FAFSA personal data is locked up. And when you list the school, St. Edward's University, Texas State University, you give us a key to open the door and look at your FAFSA information. So what do the schools do with this? Once you give us permission to look at your FAFSA, we're going to look at it after you've applied for admission and been accepted. So you need to make sure that your admissions application is complete, that you've checked all the boxes and you have gotten a letter of admission. Usually within a week to 2 weeks after that, sometimes sooner, depending on how quickly we're moving, we will mail you and also email you information about your financial aid award. So you don't have to have committed to going to a particular university. All you have to do is have applied to St. Ed's, applied to Texas State, been admitted, and then admission and FAFSA equals financial aid package. I'm going to try to give you these easier to remember. So once you have that financial aid award, you can start comparing. What's the total cost to go to St. Ed's? What's the tuition? What's the housing? What's the total cost to go to Texas State? What's the tuition? What's the housing? And then you say, well, St. Ed's is going to give me X amount of dollars. Texas State's going to give me this. And you can start comparing the out-of-pocket costs. And that's really what you're going to look at. A very, very useful tool in helping to get a preview for all of this that you guys can start using now is called a net price calculator. The one on St. Edward's website, we have spent a great deal of effort to make it as accurate as we can compared to what your FAFSA and admissions information will give you. So a net price calculator is an estimation of what university scholarship you may qualify for based on your high school transcript, what we can offer you as far as an academic merit scholarship. And then it gives you a little mini FAFSA, a smaller version of the FAFSA to estimate what type of FAFSA-based aid you might qualify for. Bearing in mind it's an estimate, we put estimate everywhere because we know if you roll out a number that your family earned X amount of dollars and on your FAFSA, that's a very different number, you're going to get something different from the FAFSA than you did on the net price calculator. So accuracy on one helps accuracy on the other. But it's a really, really good tool for you to understand how much financial aid, particularly somewhere at a private university like St. Ed's, which has a perception of being, sometimes not as affordable, it really could be for you. So please don't count us out just because we're a private school. But look at all, we just want to make sure you're giving yourself the best opportunity to make things possible. So what types of aid will the FAFSA connect you with? So the FAFSA is going to connect you with federal from the government, state of Texas, or whatever state your university, if you're applying out of state, could be Colorado, whatever, and the university itself. Does a university have funds that they can award in addition to federal and state grants? Grants are free money that you do not have to pay back at all. And they are based on what the FAFSA says your family can pay. The other type of aid the FAFSA can connect you with are student loans. These are federal student loans that the student are in the student's name, and they don't need anyone else's co-signing or credit approval to get. So the amount you can borrow each year is limited. So you can't get into too much debt without someone, alongside of you co-signing. And they can also connect you with work study. Work study is a type of on-campus employment where the federal government pays a portion of your wages that you earn. It is certainly not the only way to get an on-campus job. We actually have about a fourth of our student workers use work study funds. The other 75% are paid through the university. So there's lots of opportunity for you to work on campus. So again, FAFSA is free. It opens October 1st. You'll do it every year, starting your senior year in high school to go through your senior year of college. The priority deadline in Texas is January 15th. It's going to ask for 2-year-old household tax information, household income, how many people are in that household, the number of people in college, and your household assets. The FAFSA is going to use all this information to determine how much they think your family could afford to pay towards the cost of college, which includes tuition, books, housing, meals. You want to complete it online every year. And then you list the schools that you want to attend or are attending once you're in, past your freshman year. The schools are going to look at that and say, here's what we can offer you based on federal grant, state grant, university grant, based on federal loans and federal work study. So other types of aid that you might get that are not FAFSA based are scholarships. One kind is university scholarships. Some universities have a separate scholarship application, and you can look on their website to see. At St. Ed's, we consider students for our university academic merit scholarships at the time you apply for admission. We don't have anything beyond that. Apply for admission, apply for FAFSA, we got you. So our university scholarships are based on typically your high school performance in academics and kind of in a whole big picture. And there are also outside scholarships. And with that beautiful segue, I'm going to roll you over to Byron, who is all knowledgeable in the way of outside scholarships. He has some amazing research tips, and you guys, it does sound like a lot of work. I listened to it yesterday, but the thing is, it works if you do it, but it takes a lot of effort to get a lot of money. So off my soapbox. Thank you guys. Here you go, Byron.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Byron Kerr. I'm the Assistant Director for Outreach and Customer Service with Texas State University's Financial Aid and Scholarships, and I'll be your virtual waiter today. We are going to talk about the fun-filled, action-packed, and exciting world that is scholarships. As Aaron has already sort of pointed out, there's kind of two flavors of scholarships out there that you sort of have to manage. You have your merit-based scholarships that are offered through the university, and then you have what are known as outside scholarships, and that's scholarships from everybody else. Merit-based scholarships are based largely on sort of, as mentioned, kind of what you've already done. You know, you've maybe already taken the ACT or the SAT tests. Your class ranking is kind of starting to solidify if it hasn't really already. And so this is looking at sort of things that have already maybe even happened or are very shortly going to happen as you begin to crystallize information over your senior year. Merit-based scholarships, as pointed out, you know, some of them are just based on straight data. Texas State, for instance, we have what we call assured scholarships that are assured to you if you meet certain criteria. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but you're welcome to visit any university's webpage on it, they're showcased. Our scholarships for the merit-based scholarships tend to be enticing tools to bring students to the university. But it is looking at sort of things that have already kind of happened for many students. If you have yet to take your SAT or your ACT, my only pro tip on that is if you take the SAT and you're struggling with it, try the ACT. I, on my SAT, struggled with that, but on my ACT, I kind of killed it. And I think it had something to do with just the way the test was. So something to consider as you're starting to move on from there. But what I would like to talk about, and what I would like to really get excited about today, is how to do outside scholarships well. So a lot of folks sort of think that if I don't get a university scholarship up, I'm out of luck, I don't have any opportunities for scholarships. And that is far from the truth. The best scholarship opportunities, the most scholarship opportunities actually exist outside of that university sphere. They're called outside scholarships, and outside scholarships have, there's ways of doing it right. Back when I was a counselor in scholarships, I had a student who would call me and she would just call me and say, hey, I just got $750 in my bank account. Can you please tell me where it came from? I'm sure it came from this place. The week after that, she called me up. Hey, I got $250 from this. Can you tell me where I got it from? I said, yeah, sure. Week after that, she calls and said, hey, I got $1,000. Can you tell me where it came from? And I said, would you please see me? Because she was calling me. She had so much scholarship world working around her that she did not even know where the money was coming from. Sometimes the money would make it to the university before the letter made it to the student. And so we were awarding very quickly, and she was seeing her money, and she had to call and ask us about it. She made that year $20,000, and all but $3,000 of it were outside scholarships. She had a small university scholarship that she had earned as a merit-based scholarship, and that was it. Everything else that she had picked up was from the outside world. So I was asking her how she did it. And her and I had a couple of days of really great conversations about how she manages to do that. How do you get $20,000 in from outside scholarships? Many students, this is sort of the attitude, right? You do a handful of scholarship applications, maybe for some local organizations or community-based type stuff, and you stop and you hope. And then maybe you get $500 from the soccer league, or maybe you don't. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I didn't get anything. I guess I'm not getting scholarships this year, and you stop. That is the worst mistake a student can make. And you guys are juniors right now, many of you. And you right now are at the cusp of excellence as far as outside scholarships are concerned. So I want to kind of build the machine out on how to do what she did so that you can replicate her success for yourself. Right now, because many of you are juniors, and some of you are even freshmen and sophomores, and you're really, you're getting ahead of things. But as you're a junior, right about now in the spring semester, I would be thinking about writing essays. That's maybe the hardest part about doing an outside scholarship, right? One of the complaints and why it's so hard is because everybody's like, oh, I got to do all these essays. The trick to it, though, is not to do an essay for every single one you run across, because I'm going to be asking you to do hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. You can't keep writing new stuff each time. But if you were to go find yourself a database of scholarships, and I'll talk about that in just a second, a database of scholarships, and you begin researching kind of what kind of things they're looking for, you're going to find a trend. And that trend is going to reflect probably 7 essays in the entire world. Really. I mean, there's, describe a historical event that's important to today. Describe something that's going on today that's going to be important tomorrow. There's a general trend on how those things work. And once you sort of crack that, you're going to be in good shape. Now, the trick is cracking that. You do have to write essays to kind of get there. Nobody gets better at mathematics by not doing mathematics. Nobody gets better at doing scholarships by not doing scholarships. You want to keep doing it so that you continue to be better at it. So you start thinking about those essays, you start writing those essays now. Why now? Because it's an opportunity to go ahead and get them nice and tight, get them grammatically correct. You leave enough air in it so that you can send it to multiple places. For instance, if it's good for RC Cola, it needs to be good for Coca-Cola, it needs to be good for Pepsi Cola, it needs to be good for Big Red. Get it? It has to be able to go out there and spread its wings a little bit further than just a specific name brand of something. And so you start working on those. You start getting 5, let's say, together. That's probably a really good start. And you're looking at this going, okay, here's my 5. Maybe you've had an English teacher or the editor of the yearbook take a good hard look at it. The grammar on it's tight. You're ready to go. You're thinking about it. Right now, too, the next thing you probably want to do to start pre-prepping is asking for letters of recommendation. To do that well, you also should probably do a resume. Now, the resume doesn't have to be anything formal, but you do want to have it so that you can maybe give that to the person who you're asking for a letter of recommendation so that they remember how awesome you are. They go, oh, I remember when that happened. That sort of thing is useful. So, and you want to give recommenders plenty of time. I like to give them at least the summer, like for teachers, they let them know they got plenty of time. They're not rushed. They have time to wax poetically about how magnificent you are. And that's what you really want, right? You want somebody who's going to sing well for you. And so that's why you give them plenty of time, maybe starting now to plant those seeds, maybe even ask them out. So we have ourselves some essays, we have ourselves some letters, we have ourselves maybe a little resume, maybe tighten that up. It's not as common as it used to be, but maybe they ask for it. You're kind of ready. So you start thinking about this. So the next thing you need to do is start thinking about where you're going to find your database. A good scholarship database is going to offer you insight into sort of how this sort of thing works. Unfortunately, databases for scholarships have become largely monetized. And what I mean by that is they're not meant to be effective for you. They're meant to be effective for advertisers, for, scholarship schemes and things like that. So a couple of pro tips on that. One, I would recommend talking to your high school counselor. Your high school counselor should have the latest and greatest information on that. I'm going to recommend that you look at our webpage. We have something called iGrad here at Texas State University that has a scholarship database that's vetted. It's national and local in nature, and it's really kind of awesome. It's technically for Texas State students, but if you create your own sign-in credentials, use Texas State as your school there. I want my credit, but from there you can go ahead and maybe access some of the information there. I think, and you'll have access to that scholarship database, I believe. And so you're welcome to use it. Go for it, and start taking a look at it. Now, the database. This is what the person I was working with, how she managed this so well. She figured out that essay thing pretty quickly on. She didn't have to rewrite every single thing. The database. She treated that thing like a jazz instrument. What she would do is she would put in something. I'll give you an example. She was in sciences and she was biochemistry, but she was typing in something, maybe girls in chemistry or something. And she comes up with a Dow International Scholarship for Polymers. It's international. Dow Chemicals. Okay, it's international. Maybe we're not going to have a lot of chance for that. There's also polymers. She was biochem. So, okay, should she apply for it? The answer is yes, she does, because that's what your job is right now. Your job's to apply for what you run across, okay? If you're even close to it, you're going to go ahead and apply for it. You find it, you stumble on it, you get somebody a phone call, you find it, you go for it. You never tell yourself no. Like she could have said, oh, it's international, I don't have a chance, I'm not going to do it. No, you let them tell you no. All right, seriously. She got told no all the time. It's like publishing. You get told no all the time. It doesn't hurt. Just getting told no is not that big of a deal. You're not going to explode. It's fine. In fact, you want to be told no because it tells you something, right? It lets you know, okay, that was not good. Let's move on to the next thing. So what she would do though, so the Dow International Scholarship for Polymer, she applies for it, see what happens. She didn't get it, but that's okay. She doesn't know that at the time. Then she goes, polymers, never really considered polymers before. As she starts thinking about it, she goes, you know what? The Igloo plant on the way home to Katy, Texas, I wonder if they offer scholarships. She couldn't find anything on the webpage. She cold called them. Now, I'm not saying you should be cold calling Igloo and asking them for scholarships or anything like that. Please don't. I mean, make sure you're in the right zone here. But it was kind of a stroke of genius, is that she didn't just stop at the thing that she found, but what she did was she said, what else in that industry could possibly help me? So for example, if you're like me and you're like, I like to do a lot of hiking. So I go, okay, does REI, does Cabela, does Bass Pro Shop offer scholarships? I like my Osprey backpack. So I go, okay, I wonder if Osprey offers it. How about North Face? How about some of the other brands that are out there? Never be brand specific. And you keep drilling down until you find a $500 scholarship for the metal manufacturing company that makes the little aluminum stakes that bend in the soil here in Texas, right? You just keep digging and pressing forward with it. And then when you've done everything, you then come back to your base. So for example, let's say that the Chamber of Commerce exists in your community. How about your local businesses? So let's say the local Ace Hardware store offers a scholarship. You're definitely going to apply for that. But now you're thinking hardware stores. How about Lowe's? How about Home Depot? How about Tractor Supply? You just keep tracing it all the way out to until you can't do it. Another example, Nabisco. I like Oreo cookies. So I'd want to know if Nabisco offers a scholarship. And then I'd want to know, does Toll House offer a scholarship? And who makes the flour that goes into these cookies? Who makes that magnificent not lard that they put into the Oreos? How's that produced? Sugar. Oh my gosh, sugar manufacturing. I never thought about that one. Actually might be something to pursue. This is the kind of thinking that you do. You keep playing with it. Don't treat it like a chore, treat it like a game. How can I figure out a new place to look for money? That's what my best students do. Now, so here she is, she's applying for this. And man, she is applying for scholarships like crazy. She set up this machine. She has her essays ready to go. Their essays labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. She has letters of recommendation ready to go. That's letters of recommendation 1, 2, 3. She has a couple of resumes. She did a little CV, a little work one. And then she just starts applying for just about everything she runs into. She plays, she goofs around in the sandbox until she starts finding success. And then she does the smart thing right out of the gates. She builds a spreadsheet. The mighty spreadsheet. This spreadsheet, all it had on it was who she sent it to, but critically, what she sent. What essay was sent, what letters of recommendation were sent. Because what she would do is, anytime she got a hit, she would then replicate that line, that essay, that letter of recommendation to the same industry over and over again. Because once you have a success, there's no reason to go, oh, I'm gonna stop there and recreate the wheel for the same sort of folks. You just keep on plowing through. I'll give you an example. If you have, let's say, a faith-based scholarship that you get from, say, the Methodists, right? And you get a scholarship from them. Rockstar, a good faith-based essay. It's not gonna be something you'd wanna use for Home Depot necessarily, but it is something you'd wanna use for the local Lutherans, and for the Presbyterians, and for the Pentecostals, and for the Buddhists, and for the Hebrews, and everybody else, anybody you can possibly think of who's in a faith-based organization, you'd send that out to, because it worked already. Why not continue to press forward with what already worked? So the spreadsheet. Now, this is where she was calling me. She would have, it's thousands, by the way. It was worth for her, she told me, about $200 an hour of work. She'd only spend an hour or two every day doing it, right? But because she did it so frequently and persistently and consistently, that 1 or 2 hours every day that she did it generated enough scholarships to represent a $200 an hour paycheck, essentially. Try that at Target, right? You're just not going to see that success. So this is why it's important to really seriously consider this methodology as far as scholarships is concerned. And here's the thing. The reason why she was calling me to find out where the money was coming from was for that spreadsheet. She wanted to be able to replicate her success, and she wanted to send a thank you note. Thank you notes are just polite. You know, somebody is giving you some money to go to college. You should write a thank you note. The thing she did kind of on the tail end of this, though, is a pretty much genius, and I'm going to share it with you. She sent a second thank you note. That second thank you note was sent at the end of the semester, or the end of the university year, so at the end of the spring semester. And that letter went back out to the same donors that she'd already sent a thank you note, that already sent her money, and she said, I had a great year at Texas State University. Thank you so much for your financial support. right when millionaires are writing the next check for the next students, or right when they're considering who are they going to pick for a scholarship, they get a thank you note of a success story. Ooh, they loved that. Because what they did, I mean, millionaires love warm hugs. That's all there is to it. They just want to feel good about what they're doing. And so here they are, hit somebody, and so scholarships that weren't renewed would renew for her. Scholarships, even though there was no renewal criteria within the foundation, maybe it would come then from another fund to write a scholarship check to this successful student who needs the money. She was so good at this that by her senior year, she had over $30,000 in scholarships. She, in fact, had so much money coming in scholarships that she literally asked them to stop sending her money. Would you mind paying for my graduate school? Was the request. And the answer was largely yes. She's the only student I've ever seen who had her first year of graduate college paid for exclusively with outside scholarships. It was stunning. I've never seen anything like it. Now, this seems like a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of work up front. If you can get through the first piece of this where you're figuring it out and you get the machine going, it actually starts to become easy. Cut, copy, paste, cut, copy, paste, cut, copy, paste, apply, 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 cut, copy, paste. It doesn't require much work on the individual scholarship once you figure it out. So this is my advice to you. Right now, you can get started on this. Now, right about now, essays, letters of recommendations about as early as you can get. It's kind of like on the FAFSA. There's nothing really right now anybody can do about a FAFSA that's due in October, right? October 1st was when it opens, right? You have it done as early as possible after that, right? You can't do much about it right this second, but you can be thinking about it. Likewise with these scholarships. Essays, man, you can get those babies written right now. Letters of recommendation, boy, letting your teachers or your counselors or your coaches or community leaders know about you now, it's gonna make for a great letter of recommendation. Over the summer, you're gonna tweak this machine. You're gonna get it lined up. You're gonna be thinking about it, maybe looking at scholarship databases, seeing what's out there just to play around with it. Our database, for instance, it allows you to see the dates when things are due. Oh, and another thing about these databases, some databases, ours does this, will not show things that are closed already. So for example, Coca-Cola is a famous scholarship out there. I think I looked at it just last week and I didn't see a Coca-Cola scholarship. Well, yeah, because the deadlines have passed. Make sure you pay very close attention to deadlines with scholarship applications. One of the reasons for doing this early is so that you're kind of catching the forward curve of most of the scholarships. This tends to open around August. So August coming up, if you're a junior, would be about when you start really seriously getting busy with putting this information into play, okay? You're looking at scholarships, you're trying to apply for them, and you're doing this. Remember, apply for everything. Let them tell you no. Seriously, there's no reason, it doesn't hurt anything to do it. Most of these are not first come, first serve, but you also don't want to be the kind of person who's last in line either, right? You're a scholarship student. You are somebody who's a go-getter. You're out there and you're moving forward with this information. Waiting to the last minute serves no purpose. It doesn't penalize you. It's not first come, first serve, but usually people who turn in stuff late, I mean, I serve on those committees, they're oftentimes not the best. They're looked a little rushed. They're maybe not quite as fleshed out as they could have been. So you want to be careful and try to get busy kind of in August. Yesterday, we had students who were freshmen who had asked, kind of what can I do right now as a freshman to get ready for scholarships? Great thinking. And so if you are a freshman or a sophomore, the thing you could do right now is really be the best version of you right now. When you're looking at what kind of person is a scholarship sort of student, there are people who are already involved in community. They're already involved in leadership. They already are passionate about whatever it is they're passionate about, aquatic hamster rearing or whatever. It really doesn't matter. What is your passion? Can you express that passion? Can it come across well? And this sort of thing really helps the scholarship down the road for scholarships. So if you're a freshman or a sophomore now, the trick is to try your best to be kind of amazing. Get good at English, get good at mathematics, get good at all the academic side of the house. And extracurricular, You want to be doing things that you care about. It doesn't matter that you've done 100 of something. Honestly, sometimes our best scholarship students have only done 1 or 2 of something, but they are deep into it and they really are passionate about what they're talking about. I feel like I've sort of run out of things to say regarding scholarships. So how about if we were to go ahead and open this up to questions? I would love to hear what kind of questions that you have for me. And Erin, if I've overlooked anything or if I've missed an opportunity to share some knowledge, please feel free to jump in.
I am impressed as always with the strategizing that you present, because it's brilliant. I mean, honestly, it does seem like a lot of work, but from where you are, I've never had a graduate student get an outside scholarship. Not once, not once. They've gotten, you know, my employer is reimbursing me, but those are few and far between anymore, you know?
Things too, that reminds me is that the scholarship opportunities don't stop just because of students in college, right? There's the tendency to sort of stop doing that once you're here, but my best students just keep pressing forward on. And I do say students, by the way. This has been tested in the wild. I was at a meeting for Parents Association. I see our questions coming in now. That our Parents Association, I ran into a parent who was talking to me about this, kind of what I just shared with you, right? Because I was going to starting to talk about it and sort of try to insist on this idea. Her daughter comes up and says, "Oh, I saw this guy earlier." She recognized me, and she had heard me give this presentation. She was already, and I hadn't even started college yet. She was already $6,000 up. And you're just like, you know, what can you say? And I want to say she thinks she was in the line for 12,000. Now, that's not 30, but boy, that sure helps pay for college, doesn't it? My daughter picked up $6,000.
Those are loans you don't have to take out, you know, that's all that is.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So the question is, what are some reliable scholarship websites? I wish that I could give you those kind of properly. There's the websites that I used to use when I was a scholarship counselor, I'm sad to say, have sort of been largely bought out by corporations. So let me give you some pro tips. 1, talk to your high school counselor. They should know what the latest and greatest best ones are out there for you. The other thing too is if a scholarship asks for money, it's not a scholarship. It's a lottery, right? It's a raffle. And if they start asking for bunches of personal information prior to asking for bunches of like scholastic information, this is probably a problem too. Always check with it. And by the way, financial aid resources at St. Edward's, here at Texas State, at any school nearby you'd like to reach out to, ask us. We would be more than happy to look it up with you to make sure that it's okay and absolutely free of charge, right? So, so feel free to use us as a resource as you go out there. Now, that said, Texas State does have a resource that's kind of sort of available to you under iGrad. And if you want to use that, that one is vetted and it's a good database to use. That one though will, as soon as something closes though, it turns it off. So if you're trying to play around and explore, right about now is not awesome, only because, you know, there's not a whole lot open right this very second, but there's still plenty out there for you to get started on. Us here, I got Kaylee saying that I am sorry, Kaylee, I probably shouldn't have done a shout out, my bad. So I'm a senior in high school and only be going to Texas State for about 2 years for my bachelor's because of my transfer credits. Outstanding. That's the way to do it. Any tips about opportunities going to graduate school after those 2 years? Well, the trick to getting into graduate school is really fantastic academics while you're in college. And so that's really the trick. And if you have an idea of what kind of school you want to go to or what your major might be now early, I really recommend looking into those programs in advance to make sure the coursework you're taking as an undergraduate are going to work. And you don't need to take any bridge type courses to kind of meet the minimum criteria to get into those graduate programs. However, I suspect you're not that problem. You're already going to be coming in as a junior, which is amazing. Good for you. By the way, just so you know, at least here at Texas State, Aaron, you talk to your own university, you will look like an incoming freshman. So you'll be eligible for freshman scholarships, even though you look like a junior in transcripts. And so that can be a double benefit. I've seen students that they're already a junior and they're receiving academic scholarships and they're outside scholarships and they're just doing it all right. Mm-hmm. I hope that answers your question. Let's see here. I
want to just tack on something there, Byron. For our students that come in as if you've graduated from high school and you go on to a community college, we have transfer student scholarships. They're different from freshmen, but you still are eligible for incoming student scholarships. If you are a high school student and you're coming in fresh out of high school, but you've taken dual credit in high school, but you've never actually attended college full time, then you might be a junior by credits, but you're still considered a freshman because you're not attended college. So we differentiate those two, but yet you're still eligible for merit-based scholarships. And then I just wanted to speak to this, the next student that asked for application fee waivers. We might do this differently, public school, private school, but typically, well, and that's really an admissions office question. My understanding is they've done it different ways. We used to do it if you were eligible for an SAT waiver, then you were eligible for an application fee waiver, but we don't require the SAT anymore. So that's moot. So I don't know what their criteria are, but I would look on the admissions office website of whatever university you're going for. Oftentimes you'll get a waiver if you just apply before, by that certain deadline. Ours was December 1st of this year. If you applied by that early admit deadline, it was waived. So it was more of a timing issue than a qualifying issue, but every school is probably going to be a little bit different with that.
That's exactly the case. So the state's going to manage it very differently. So I encourage you to, definitely ask your admissions counselor, the one that you're working with, to help you with college selections and things like that, and see which one fits for you as far as that's concerned. And if for scholarships, if there's an application fee, ain't a scholarship. Run from that.
Yeah, no, they can't promise you a result unless they themselves are giving it away. And if they're giving away a scholarship, why would they make you pay for it? So, something else, and Byron, I'm curious, one of the things that we have advised students in the past, because like you said, a lot of those fastwebfina.org, those aren't nearly as fruitful as they used to be. But we used to tell students, if you're doing a scholarship search, you might want to make sure you have a unique or a new email address, certainly a professional sounding email address. erinmattgoestocollege.gmail.com, something that's not like, Taurus girl 97, just make sure it's you and it's professional sounding. And also if you do, that way you can keep, school emails over here and scholarship emails separate from bills and stuff like that, just so do you find that's
No, I think that's an interesting point. One of the things is that it is not a bad idea to have another email account that you're using for scholarships, and maybe something that does sound a little bit more mature. Because if you are referencing something that maybe seems a little party oriented or something a little shopping oriented or whatever, it may, just in the back of the noggin, niggle a little bit and worry about whether or not that's quite the right person, especially when the decisions are coming, you're thousands of applicants and you're trying to balance maybe 5 scholarship recipients for a foundation. You really want to make sure it's getting out to the right people. And you want to make sure you seem like that right person. So that's a good idea, I think, in general. Even as you're starting to move out of high school and into more professional stuff, it's your work email and things like that need to kind of remain separate from your private, especially if you have a more playful sounding name. I know it's difficult to come up with unique ones now, in the age. My Gmail address has no numbers because I was first in line, but I'm lucky, right? I'm one of the few. So
2 more questions I think we can squeeze in. One, your thoughts on large books that list scholarships? I'm
fine with those. If you like to go and use those old school books, Rockstar, those are actually usually vetted, and they should be fine. So if your library has editions of that, feel free to do it. It's just not as easy as doing a database online. Database online, you have that opportunity to kind of play with it. Those very large books that have scholarships are kind of, they remind me of like, science indexes. How you flip through them matters, and so it may not be quite as fruitful. However, you don't have the opportunity to play. I love the databases online because if I get a hit here and I don't see any more hits around that, but I really think there should be something in that industry, I can roll out to companies' web pages. And I'm not kidding. My best student would literally call the company, get a hold of the admin and ask, even small ones, like little things that are here local. She would just reach out to the locals. And the Chamber of Commerce is great for this, by the way. Chamber of Commerce will have a list of all the businesses that belong to the chamber. And, you know, many of those offer small scholarships. And sometimes they go unaccepted because they're specific to that region. They don't have that many students going to college. We have a scholarship here that's only for like 3 counties, and it's very rural West Texas. And, you know, waiting for that one student to come to Texas State is difficult sometimes to fill. So you might find some success because you happen to be talking to the Chamber of Commerce in Lamar or someplace like that.
One final question. Are most colleges not requiring the SAT? There were, I think, a significant number of colleges and universities were waiving it for students that would have been taking it in 2020 because it simply just wasn't safe to take it. And the virtual use of it, sometimes, you know, there were issues with connectivity and all kinds of things. St. Ed's decided that we were going to permanently make it optional, test optional. So our admissions office isn't really looking at them, but if the student, you know, is asking it as more of a holistic view, I think they will, but we're not requiring it. And I think there are more universities moving away from that, but that is definitely a college specific question. I wouldn't feel comfortable making any estimations outside of St. Ed's, but it'll be very clear on your admissions process if it'll be there, if it's required.
And folks, I believe that is all the time that we have. Looks like we're out of time. So have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
And thank you so much to Byron and Aaron for being here and sharing all that fabulous information. As you exit the Zoom webinar, you will be taken to a quick survey. It's only 4 questions, so we'd love to hear your feedback regarding this particular session. And we have our virtual college fair for the next 3 hours as well. So if you want to connect with over 200 different colleges and universities, feel free to sign up for those sessions at strivescan.com/Texas. And as I mentioned in the beginning, all of these are being recorded and will be available on that same website in about a week or so. So I hope everyone enjoyed the session and have a great evening.